Hello, I'm Jeff Skinner, Executive Director of the Institute of Innovation and Entrepreneurship at London Business School. Welcome to our Resilient Founders series, which provides insights from experienced current entrepreneurs from around the world at a time when business is facing formidable challenges. Remember, if you're an entrepreneur who's been through a crisis before, you're welcome to share your story as well on social media using the hashtag LBS Resilient Founders. Now, today we have Anna Szymanowska, an MBA from 2018, who's founder of Fighter Shots and is in the London Business School's Incubator. And you know, Anna, I reached out to you a week or so ago because I thought your company, Fighter Shots, might be experiencing real challenges at this time, because I knew that one of your major challenges was through the outlets that are actually now closed. So I was reaching out to you to say, is there any help we can give you? But then you came back with an entirely different story about the way in which you'd been coping with this challenge, and maybe it wasn't quite as bad. In fact, maybe you had even been capitalizing on some of the opportunities that this afforded. But why don't you just start off by saying what is your company and what is your product?
Yes, sure. So hello, everyone. I founded Fighter Shots exactly a year ago. Fighter Shots are health ginger-based shots, and they are great for fighting cold and flus. They are great for immunity, and they did prove to be really a hit during current times. And indeed, one of my channels was coffee shops or outlets or the school cafeteria that indeed have closed. But it doesn't mean that people stopped buying, and on the contrary, my online sales really went up. So net, I would say, yeah, the business definitely has been growing in the few weeks. It doesn't though mean that there are no challenges.
You put a huge amount of energy, I know, into finding these corner shops and other outlets. So it must have been, to begin with, a huge disappointment that all this shoe leather work you put into literally going around and getting these stores online, suddenly they all close. So what was your original reaction? It must have been a sort of a oh no type moment.
Yes, definitely. We had a plan to still work with with more of them, as they proved to work in this channel. So obviously it is very disappointing when you kind of realize, okay, this is now out of question. But again, there is never a situation that you cannot make the best out of it.
Right. So okay. So let's take that. Just a little bit of background to the business. I mean, cash can be a huge problem, but I'm supposing, I mean, that the team is fairly small. The team is pretty much you, and then everything else is subcontracted outsourced. Is that right?
Yes. I have an LBS person helping me with strategy and a few other things. I have now investors who also have been actively helping, but it's true, no one is really operational. So kind of the link between the factory, the fulfillment center, and the clients is definitely me.
Just again, a little bit of background. I think you procure the raw ingredients yourself for this, don't you? I mean, it's a case of you finding the ingredients to make sure they are the best ingredients, and then you give them to your supplier, who then does all the processing for you and hands you back the finished article.
Yes, I have a bottling company who is doing just the manual work, but that's true. All the 15 suppliers for the bottles, for the labels, for all the ingredients, for the ginger, for lemon, for honey, I am sourcing myself from.
Okay, so I think that's how you fill your days. So day one of the crisis hits. The announcement is made, all shops are closing. You think, oh no, and then suddenly something happens online. What happened?
It was actually even before. I have to say that I've already have realized that there was a spike in orders just before they have actually announced the lockdown. So yeah, that was a great news that, like, you know, because today everything is connected. You see immediately on your phone when the orders start coming. So definitely I've seen, you know, that was building up for already some time. But yes, that was a little bit worrying. And I didn't really worry about my own sales, really. I have to tell you that when I realized or just about the sales, I felt a little bit bad for those clients that have just purchased my product, and I know they will have no time to sell it because, you know, they had to close.
Now you've got a crisis. So now we're entering crisis phase. You've got a whole pile of people out there. You're either letting people down, if that's one way to look at it, or you're missing out on sales is another bit. How on earth did you gear up? I mean, this is where the entrepreneur has a disadvantage, because you haven't got the cash, and yet somehow you need to be able to ramp up production. And this is usually called over trading, which is one of the principal reasons why companies, startups go out of business. They run out of cash. So what did you do?
So basically, many of the online places, especially Amazon or Yambos where I'm selling, they are enabling you to pre-sell the product, although it's not in stock. So basically you are informing the client when in stock, and then decide if they want to purchase it already now and wait 2 weeks, let's say. And I have to say that there is enough clients that do that, which means, you know, I get the money up front, and you know I can ship the product when it's ready. So I have to say that the consumers, you know, became also very patient and very understanding, which is a good thing as well. I think it's maybe kind of, you know, a result of the whole situation, that, you know, and the education of people, where you explain to them, you know, how things work, and that, like, entrepreneurs struggle.
But even then, I mean, even if these were the customers who had signaled they want to buy something, you, I think, were anticipating even greater sales. So you did need more cash. And I think, you told me about the attitude of your investors and what they did when you went to them to say, look, shall we increase you know, production by a factor of 2? I think they were slightly more ambitious than that, weren't they?
Yeah, well, it wasn't that easy. I remember the very first time they also didn't know what is happening. So the very first time they told me, like, be careful, you don't know, like, you know, you keep start ordering, you know, products, you don't know if actually these suppliers will be able to deliver. So at the very beginning, the very first time, I was a little bit, and also they say you don't know if people will you know, keep ordering. So at the very first time, we're not very as positive, but because I had this, you know, pre-order system in place, and I said, but look, like, you know, I've already pre-sold a few thousand, I have to go with this production. They said, okay, makes sense. Then, and as well, like, as soon as, you know, the first production sold out within a few days, they said, okay, the next one, like, you know, double it.
The money arrived the following day. They had that, they saw the evidence, you provided them with that, and they piled in.
So again, you have to prove still, you know, a little bit that, like, you know what you are doing, and then, like, you know, there are clients out there. But once, you know, the very first initial sales has happened, then they have realized, okay, you know, we want to support. And it's true, like, you know, when I explained to them, like, okay, if we want to, you know, increase the production, I need to let the factory know immediately, so that, you know, they find a slot, which means I immediately need the money. And they said, we understand. So, like, you know, the same day they have shipped it.
Let's get on to production, because I mean, you know, as a small entrepreneur, you're hardly at the front of the line here when it comes to production. So, you know, first of all, you've got to source more stuff. I mean, I don't know whether that means you going down to New Covent Garden Market and at 4 o'clock in the morning. I've no idea how it does. And then somehow you've got to get all these lorry loads of stuff up to the production. And then you've got the production facility itself saying, actually, we're quite busy. Or, oh, you are under stress, aren't you? Why don't we charge you 3 times as much for the same thing since you need us so much? I mean, how did you manage that whole supply chain?
Yes, so luckily, you know, most of the products I'm purchasing, they are commodities, which means there are many suppliers. So if one, you know, let's say, it's not like they would immediately increase the price, but very often they are just also out of stock. And it happened with several products. So for example, you know, my bottle supplier didn't have enough bottles that I wanted to procure. So I had to go to the second one, and their price was a little bit more expensive, but still, like, you know, what do you do? Like, you just, your margins take a hit, but you do this. this. With ginger, luckily, I didn't have an issue because I'm procuring right now ginger from Amsterdam, from one of the biggest suppliers in Europe. So I think for my quantities, they definitely, still have stock. But it is true, it is a little bit stressful. And I have to say that it's a funny story that the week before, I actually was planning to place the order, and already the second order for the production happening now next week. And the lockdown was already a week in place. I went to the local store, grocery store, and I don't know, obviously all the prices by heart, but I always know the price of ginger. And I know that that the ginger used to cost £3 a kilo. Yeah. And that day it costed 10. And I was like, this is interesting. Maybe this is a special ginger type, although it wasn't organic. Organic was even more expensive. So it's like, okay, this is interesting. But it was Friday evening, so I couldn't call up my supplier from Amsterdam and check, is everything fine? But these small things are definitely putting you, under stress, because you think, what is happening? If here the price went up so much, could be that, everyone is really, struggling.
And then your manufacturer. How did they react to all this? Because this is another difficult conversation. I mean, happy in so many ways, but were they just able to scale up with you?
The production, again, it's also not the very first factory I had. I started producing in Scotland, but they also proved to be quite small. They couldn't cope with the quantities, so now I also have a bottling company that is actually one of the biggest bottling companies of shots, and they do probably 80% of all the shots market in the UK, so they are also ready to produce. So yeah, I also don't have, luckily, a bottleneck on that end anymore, because it was also a luck thing, because I literally switched to them a few weeks ago. If the lockdown would have happened when I was still, with the Scotland factory, let's say a month ago, then also I wouldn't be able to produce the numbers. So that was just a good timing.
Well, it is. I mean, the luck comes to those who work hard. So again, and you chose a bottler who could scale with you. So a lot of these earlier judgments actually, proved that when, in this case, something good happened, they were able to work with you, and that relationship held true, and they were able to produce for you. So then we go all the way down to the shipping. Now I'm imagining, you shipping. You up until the dead of night with cardboard boxes and things, making sure that people get this stuff when you promise them. I mean, we have to go back here. You're selling how many a week?
The last production run was 10,000, and it sold in a week.
You also choose a fairly sort of resilient organization to help you fulfill these things.
Yes, there's a great fulfillment center also here in London who specializes in fulfilling these, which means that the supply chain looks like that. Like the pallets from the factory go to the fulfillment center. The fulfillment center has great systems which are connecting with mile sales points, which is Shopify, which is Amazon, which is Yambos. And all the orders, that people place, go directly to the fulfillment center, and yeah, they work with different couriers. They work with Amazon couriers as well, which means I can offer Amazon Prime. Every day there is an Amazon person coming, to my fulfillment center, picking it up. So this, also helps a lot.
Let's sum the whole thing up here. I mean, there's a crisis in the outside world, and we know, and we really feel for the founders who find themselves in extraordinarily difficult times. Resilience to you has meant something entirely different. Resilience to you has meant there is suddenly an opportunity created by this. This is a type of product that people actually want at this time, and you have had to really mobilize and stay sane through a time when things have gone through the roof. How's it been?
I would say the most difficult is really yet in all the situation, as I also mentioned at the very beginning, my job is, a kind of a liaise right now between the factory, but all, and production and suppliers and customers, because we can't forget, obviously the most important part of the business are the customers. And now that I started selling B2C, I have right now hundreds, if not thousands customers, rather than just like, a few B2B channels I used to have before. This increases definitely the need for responding to all the messages, to making sure that everything arrives on time. Many deliveries, although it says, they have been delivered, clients haven't received them. What I have realized, has happened with the business, in the past weeks is that although, some areas prove to be quite, kind of bulletproof really, as production, didn't let me down. The factory, can cope with the amounts, very, very well. Although, the suppliers, have been great as well, and, delivering on time. There were definitely areas of the business where I realized I'm definitely not ready. Basically, people don't only want the product, they also kind of, want to engage, they ask you questions, they tell you their stories, why they want the product, they want to buy it, for their family, for their moms, they want to make sure that this is a product, they want. So I would say the biggest challenge is the increase of of number of customers, and this definitely is taking a lot of time and effort.
Just how many hours are you sleeping?
I wouldn't say I'm not sleeping enough. It is 24/7. Sometimes people are writing, emails. I wake up, and I see an email written 3-4 in the morning. Again, people are asking oh, are you out of stock? When are you back in stock? They're asking for recipes, with the product. They're asking for really different, sort of things. And that's true. The emails are coming 24/7.
And this is the entrepreneur's advantage, really, isn't it? I mean, you care about the product.
Yes.
Care about the customer. So you will answer emails at 3 o'clock in the morning if you get anything. I can't imagine a big corporate doing that. So, the reason we wanted to talk and record this was because, I mean, here you are smiling through all of this. I don't know whether it's a manic smile or whether it's a genuine smile, but, you've had to be resilient in an entirely different way here. Things were going so smoothly, steady growth, and suddenly an explosion. And you could either have ignored that explosion, or you could have mobilized to meet it. And hats off to you that you actually decided to go for it, and the wonderful judgments that you seem to have made in terms of your partners in this, who are able to scale with you and work with you here, and those relationships held good. Thank you. It's been marvelous to hear your story, and marvelous to get a lovely piece of great news during what's otherwise a fairly gloomy period for so many. I mean, you won a place in the school's incubator, where we collect together 11 or 12 great entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs each year, and you're all huddled together in this incubator. Has being part of that cohort, has that been part of that community of people suddenly hit with these different types of shocks? How much of how much friendship, how much advice, how much support has that been?
It's been a tremendous support. So yeah, not having a team, a boss that tells you what to do, a team that supports you, it is really hard. So having, colleagues that share similar journey, it's just invaluable. So yeah, I've definitely made, great contacts, and not only friendships, but also some of the contacts proved to be really, working business-wise as well. Therefore, yeah, I'm always just recommending to anyone being part of a community like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
So if you're an entrepreneur who's been through a crisis before, you're welcome to share your story on social media using that hashtag LBS Resilient Founders, or just get in touch with us by emailing eship@london.edu.